Welcome to Talk Openly. It's great to have you here. I'm Jac, and this is my lovely co-host, Daniel.
Hi, everybody.
And Daniel, thank you for I don't want to say messing up, but thank you for for having a moment of where things don't align in the best way, because I think that was a great intro into just what we're talking about in all of these get-togethers is, how do we deal with life when things go awry? Because inevitably they do. This is samsara. And one thing you said about, getting used to public speaking and being in front of people, having that vulnerability, that I think is so valuable, is that it really breaks down, for me, one of my main issues is that I'm really concerned about reputation and how people perceive me. And so public speaking can be terrifying, because it's like, there's all these different people who could be thinking all different things about me in their own unique ways, which is terrifying. It's terrifying when my reputation is the thing that I'm thinking about the most.
Yeah, that is so true. What do they think about me? Yeah. Oh no, trying to control for that. It's madness.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah, because people are incredibly fickle. So even someone who adores you one day could be annoyed with you the next day.
Oh yeah. And like if I'm any indicator of what it's like to perceive other people, a lot of times I'll like a certain feeling will arise, like I'm annoyed with somebody, or I'm irritated with somebody, or maybe I feel pity for somebody. I'll have some kind of a feeling that's based upon a thought that I have about them, or about like something that they did or something that happened. And then I'll realize I was wrong. Like something will happen, and I just was dead wrong. And, it's more often than not that whatever I think is happening is not what's actually going on. And therefore, all my perceptions are completely wrong. So no matter how much other people might control for it, or how I might control for it, there's always going to be these crossed wires.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, most definitely. Yeah. And it's just exhausting to try and, control everything, because for one, we can't. But yeah, it's a big waste of time.
It's true. It's true. My goodness, it's good to be back online with you. It's weird, right? Like, this is a weekly thing, but it feels like a near daily thing. Like time just is moving so fast. It's like, whoa, another Talk Openly. Wow.
I know. Yeah. It's really been going fast for me too. And then in other ways, time kind of drags too for me. Yeah, it's weird. I always I'm on two planes when it comes to time. When something like this comes up, where it's like a regular thing that I do once a week, it's like, holy crap, how did it get here? But then when I think back on the week and everything that happened during the week, it feels like inconceivable that much happened.
Right.
So yeah, it's so interesting how just how I perceive time, or maybe how time perceives me. I don't know.
Uh-oh. Where are we going with this?
Well, let's start. Let's get going. Okay. Talking about time.
Yeah. We've already used up 6 precious minutes.
Yeah, I did want to check in a little bit about just how your week went, talking about time and how things just go so wacky and all over the place. What's been going on for you?
So my last week has been jam-packed, like every day, lots of stuff going on, work, kids, this, that, whatever, all kinds of stuff. But what's so awesome is that my meditation practice has been reliably consistent first thing in the morning. It's, been deepening, or, as it happens, as you practice consistently. And it's been really remarkable to watch, not just the sits themselves, the experiences there, this sort of deepening of understanding or something that's happening there. But there's also just this like I recognize this utilitarian aspect to it all, which is that I'm able to do all this stuff and have a jam-packed sort of, life, if you will, and it's not stressing me out. It used to always stress me out. It used to cause a lot of anxiety, like because I needed to be here and this person expects this and whatever. But I feel like I've like a lot of that isn't present, even if there's a lot of demand on me or whatever at any given time. I don't feel that heightened sort of stress and anxiety, and that increases my capacity. I can do more, right? Like I can actually accomplish more because I'm not so wound up in the anxious, neurotic, sort of stressful way of being. And that's pretty remarkable. I love it.
Yeah, that is amazing. Yeah, what do you think, what do you attribute it to in your meditation practice? Like what's happening to reduce that
Yeah.
roast?
I think that what happens is that the consistency of meditating, like regular meditation, then that's like our training, right? And then that bleeds over into our daily practice. And I think that the more that I train, the more that I remain in that meditative state, right? Where I remain aware, present, right? And not so distracted. And I'm able to, it's interesting, I notice in daily life how often I'm able to sort of be like, oh, right, like remember and come back, which is the same thing that I'm doing in meditation. And so like, I think that that's what it is. Like sometimes I'll notice like, oh, I'm starting to get kind of freaked out about there's too much going on. I should just take a break or whatever, and then I'll be like, oh, right, there we go. and that act or somehow like that leads to a dropping of sort of this anxious, neurotic sort of way of being. Yeah. So that's what's going on with me. What about you?
That's awesome. Yeah, that's really nice to hear. Yeah, in talking about training, I still very much, and this is just kind of how my mind is. I'm a very like anxious and excited person. I'm always kind of doing something. There's always just a consistent train going through my mind of maybe even multi levels of thought. It's like it's a lot. But
like 5-dimensional chess up there.
yeah, it's just, oh God, get out of there. But so it's going to take me, many lifetimes, I think, to probably like be able to, be in more of that meditative state, like throughout the day, or, not even meditative state, but just like really aware, in my everyday life. But it is happening, it is developing. But what I really notice, is how, my view of other people is really, really radically shifted compared to several years ago. That's where I really see kind of the most difference in my day-to-day, where I just noticed like myself kind of, really appreciating or loving the people around me, even if they're, people I don't really know. So that's really nice to like find little ways to appreciate and like other people. That definitely makes the day easier, right? Because it's like,
heck yeah,
if I'm not surrounded by enemies anymore or as much, then that's a much nicer place to be in. So yeah, I've been
when you're in that place, do you notice that when you're in that place that they then respond to you differently than when you're not in that place?
Sure. Yeah, most definitely. Yeah. Yeah, and I've noticed too that when I'm more open and kind of present and aware and connected to myself in the moment, and yeah, feeling kinder and whatnot, I notice that people are more like drawn to me, or want to talk.
Yeah, naturally, of course.
Naturally, yeah. It's just you want to talk to people who feel friendly or welcoming. It just makes sense. And yeah, so an example of this, I'll give you an example. so I take a little shuttle bus to get to the ferry every morning. And so there's a small group of people that I see every day on the bus, and that we, commute together. And there's this one person who, she's a complainer. Like that's kind of her. It's it's something. It seems like she really enjoys, having something to be able to like talk to someone about like, oh man, they're not dropping us off right there anymore, or like they were 2 minutes late the other day, and that's just kind of every time that I see
Oh
her,
yeah.
there's something like that. Um, and so we don't really tend to talk a lot because I'm not necessarily like giving anything back when she does complain to
Right.
me. So, um, but the other day I was standing on the dock, just waiting for the ferry, and I was looking at the water, and there was these really beautiful birds flying, and I felt very peaceful in myself, and I was just kind of loving on these birds from afar, like just kind of
Mhm.
singing them mantras and like feelings and whatnot. And
Yeah.
I was like maybe even a little bit dopey on the dock, just like, oh. And the next day this woman approaches me, and she says, I saw you standing there the other morning, looking out at the water, and she was just asking me like, did you see anything? Like it's so we were talking about the birds, and she was like, oh, and that reminds me, I wanted to tell you that there's this family of deer that's been in my yard. And there was just this way that I
Oh,
felt like um she kind of opened up in a different way to me, because maybe I had been open and friendly to other beings. And so it was really cool. It was nice.
yeah, like you can kind of get this sense, right? Like I know the kind of person that you're talking about, and I really can't stand being around
It's
people. Like
challenging.
it's draining,
Mm.
But like I can just imagine her perceiving you. You're watching the birds, you're doing your thing, and seeing something there that that she wanted. There was something attractive, right, about that. And then attractive enough to compel her to come and talk to, right? Like that's
Yeah.
pretty there's something there, all right. It's like that saying, you let your vibe attract your tribe, right? Like that kind of thing, right? So like you had a certain vibe and she was
Yeah.
liking it, she was digging it.
That's good. Yeah, it helped me to see her differently, because
Yeah.
I have her in the box of complainer.
Oh yeah.
Don't want kind of want to avoid, but then she showed me a different side of herself.
Yep.
So yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, it's good
Good.
stuff.
That's a beautiful, I like it. That's a good example of how your practice is leading you to your relationships with other people to change.
Yeah, yay, wonderful.
Yay.
Well, hey, we've been on quite a roll with these questions the last couple times, and I know we've got a few more from viewers. We've had some really interesting discussions the last couple weeks.
I've
So
been digging it. I love it.
yeah, it's been very fun.
I like
So
it so much that I got rid of all my crumpled up pieces of paper.
did you really? What'd you do?
It's not my turn to go first, but what I did was I took Post-it notes and I wrote on the inside so that I couldn't cheat like I did last week. Last week I cheated and I pulled one out. So this week I can't cheat because I can't see them, and they're all neat. Look at that. It's a neat little. It's not origami, but it's not crumpled paper either.
Yeah, it maybe it feels a little bit more organized, and
Yeah, it has that vibe, and I got it in my hat. I got a hat.
nice. So you're wanting me to pick first, huh?
I want you to go first. Yeah.
Okay, I've got one. Ah, why can't I do it alone? Which I imagine this person meant, why can't I be a spiritual practitioner or a Dharma cowboy, practicing on my own. I don't need anybody. I just do it on my own, pull myself up by the bootstraps.
Ooh, I like it. That's my kind of person. I think they call that a Pratyeka Buddha, right?
Tell us about the Pratyeka Buddhas.
No, 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 no. I don't know
No?
enough to talk about it, but I think that that's the cowboy Buddha path that you're talking about. I think.
And yeah, I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure the Pratyeka Buddhas are beings who have attained enlightenment for themselves, right? But
Is that right? Yeah, maybe.
but
For some reason, yeah.
they're not going for enlightenment for the rest of sentient beings.
That's why I can't talk about it. For some reason, I thought like I got the two concepts in my head: this cowboy Buddha and Pratyeka Buddha. But whatever, let's not get confused about that. I think the question is a really good question. I don't know a particular answer, but my sense is I think that you could try to do it alone. I don't know how long it would take. It might take multiple eons, right? To get there. I really don't know. Like it probably depends on your karmic what you got going on that way. Like I'm not really sure, but my sense is that I've never met a single human being that did anything alone. I've never met anybody who didn't learn from somebody else, right? That didn't inherit or get their sort of understanding of the world from somebody or something else. It came from somewhere else. I mean, like there might be some original thoughts out there, maybe, but for the most part, it seems like the way that we are as humans is we're learning creatures, and when we learn, we have to learn like we learn from each other, right? Of course, we're learning from our environment as well. And so in that sense, I mean, unless we want to think of ourselves as somehow completely isolated and cut off from everything else, I don't really think there's even a possibility that you could do it alone, right? You could certainly really pull really hard on your bootstraps and harder than other people, and maybe that's really helpful. But I cannot even imagine, given what I understand about what the path of what the spiritual path might be leading to. It seems like the idea of being cut off and isolated and not interconnected with the rest of reality in that way seems sort of like counterintuitive, like counterproductive. Like it's kind of like almost like if you think you're going to do it all by yourself on your own, like Godspeed, do it, try it, and then you'll probably learn that you can.
Yeah.
What do you think? I'm curious to hear your thoughts.
Well, that definitely, all of that resonates with me. And I'm thinking about like myself here too, because I think a lot of ways I do like the cowboy thing in like other areas of my life. But even then, of course, like I'm thinking about, work. I'm pretty independent at work. I, probably to my detriment, don't request a lot of supervision, don't talk a lot to coworkers, and because I'm just like one thing after the other, I'm just like getting stuff done. And that's always been kind of my way of doing things. Something I'm working on. And as far as, my spiritual practice, I'm just thinking about like when, like in early stages of my spiritual practice, beyond, the tradition that I was born into. So my own kind of journey when I started, kind of searching in my 20s and whatnot, it was just really confusing to try and like, I don't know, learn about some of these really like esoteric or complicated topics. And I would get it mixed up. I would get it confused. Like I was really obsessed with this idea that like language was the problem. Like I started looking into I started looking into like mystical traditions and stuff, and I did read some Buddhism, but I felt like what they were saying was that language is the problem, because really what we're doing is just experiencing, and when we use language, we're labeling. And so I was like, well, how do we tear apart language then? And so just kind of like going down tangents that like are interesting and have a little bit of like credibility, but when that became like the central core, it was like, well, where do I go from there? I don't know what to do with that. So yeah, it just seems to me that it's like I'm really glad that I found a tradition and a teacher, because I think I could spend a lot of time wasting my time on maybe these kind of like more heady stuff that would just be confusing, especially, even more confusing
Yeah.
without a guide. So yeah, I just think it makes sense. It's like practical
Yeah.
to not do
Yeah.
it wrong.
Can I tell a little bit, a tiny little story that's
Please.
related to this? So I think what you said resonates in the sense that I totally am I can do this on my own sort of thing, right? Like it really does appeal to me, that notion. And in my business, so the company that I run, my brother and I started it. We kind of fell into this software development business, right? We just found ourselves all of a sudden, we're like, oh, right, we're running a software development business. Sort of like how I feel like I just sort of like found myself on a spiritual journey. I didn't know that that's what I was doing, but here, oh, right, that's what's going on, right? And then, so at work, we spent 10 years doing it our way because nobody's as smart as us. Nobody knows how to do what we do the way we do. And we had these really terrible growing pains where we couldn't get past, like we were great, don't get me wrong, like, oh yeah, we were awesome. But we hit these certain places where we couldn't grow anymore. There was literally like, there was nothing we could do because somehow our way of doing it had led us down into like a trap, right? Had put limits on our ability to grow. And then I remember like we started looking around because we're like sort of like one would on a spiritual journey, like, oh my God, I've hit a dead end. Please, please, anybody out there, does somebody know? Can somebody help me? And it turned out there was, in fact, an entire like a whole community of software developers that had created a framework of understanding, a way of thinking about it that was like, it was just a framework, right? And they'd gotten together, a community, they'd gotten together and thought about it and come up with all of their thoughts about how software development can be done really well, no matter how you're doing it. And when we started applying that, I mean, it was like light bulbs just going off, like, whoa, oh my God, this is crazy. And now like those same checks on our growth aren't there because we're willing to say, okay, we're done with what we can do on our own, right? And so now it's time to turn to sort of a higher power, right, if you will. No, I'm not talking about a God. I mean, developers who know what they're doing, and
Yeah,
more of
yeah.
them than just us, right? And it didn't, at no point in time did we have to say, yes, that is what we believe about the world and how it is, and da, 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 da. It was just helpful. It's just a helpful framework, right? It's learning something outside of ourselves. And so in that sense, I think that anyone who's drawn towards, to being a cowboy Buddha, or someone who wants to, seek spiritual realization on their own, I think they should do it. I encourage you to do it wholeheartedly. Go, balls to the wall and just like do your best, and then see what happens. I mean, maybe you'll reach the pinnacle of human achievement, or maybe you'll realize that you need some help.
Yeah. And I don't think, there's like, it's interesting what you said about like, if someone has that kind of intuition, maybe it's good to follow that for a while, see where it takes you. And then just get curious, like, just checking in, like, how is this working for me? It's just like, I think that's what's been so fun a little bit for me lately, is just realizing that I don't need to have so many judgments about my practice. Or it's like, how about I just check in, like, what's happening here? And is there anything that I could add or try or whatever? So I like that you took that approach of like, sure, just go ahead and try it and see.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I often think about it like the idea of spiritual journeys being this path up a mountain is a pretty common sort of concept. And I don't think I think most people can agree that they can walk along the valley floor and into the foothills just fine on their own, right? Like for the most part. And they don't necessarily need guides for that. But when you get into, the higher elevations and the trickier parts, right? When you're climbing on sheer granite or whatever, it might be helpful to have some support and some guides who've been there before. Otherwise, I think it can be, treacherous, difficult, unpleasant, and it simply might not get you where you want to be.
Yeah. 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 That's a very practical way of looking at it. Yeah. You ready for our next one?
Yeah.
All right. Your turn.
I'm doing it. Okay. All right.
On you little
now I
green.
can't open it.
What?
Okay, here we go. All right. What do you hope to gain by being a Buddhist and meditating all the time?
Huh. I like that question. Very simple.
Let's just take it personally. What do you hope to gain?
You know, if I'm being like totally honest in my kind of like limited personal self world realm, it's I want to attain peace of mind and joy, and to be like better attuned with others. Those are really the things that pop up most for me. And certainly what brought me to Lions Roar in the first place was just, you know, really needing to find meaning and some sort of way out of my depression. So certainly started with mental well-being. And yeah, it's definitely transformed into a much more altruistic way of seeing that. And it's still within that kind of realm of like, well, you know, the way that I come to altruism is that I really have to be well within myself. And so, you know, developing these qualities of compassion or love, joy, oftentimes starts with meditations on doing that for the self. So recently I've been doing Tonglen, which is a giving and receiving meditation. It's really sweet. If there's folks out there who haven't tried it, I really recommend looking it up. And basically you're just you're imagining taking on the suffering of others and, you know, transforming it through your bodhicitta, which is the wish for all beings to be free from suffering, and then sending it back out to them in some form with like a golden light, healing light that then allows them to have joy and peace and happiness and whatnot. And so I've been doing that lately, and I just recently started doing it where I start with myself rather than starting with other people. And that's been really nice, actually. So yeah, I think a lot of times what I'm looking for through my Dharma practice is, you know, can I access some deep level of peace of mind within my own being that I didn't have access to before, and then recognizing, wow, this really makes my connections to others a lot more fluid and beautiful, and yeah, it just makes everything like it almost turns up the like the brightness on everything, because yeah, it's just like my awareness is more in tune. So yeah, it definitely started with the self, interestingly enough, right? Or not, you know, it's just kind of, again, practical, right?
Yeah. Oh, what a beautiful response. I love it.
Oh, how about you, Daniel?
Well, I wanted to riff off of your Tonglen thing just for a second.
Yeah.
So yeah, I wanted to say that something like I had a very recent experience. So I typically add Tonglen, just a few minutes of it to the end of my daily meditation practice. And in the past, I've always just gone straight to other people, right? But in the last like couple of weeks, I've done what you know, exactly what you said. And I've started with myself. And it's transformative. Like it really, like it's a very it's palpable. Like you could feel it. It's an odd thing, and it actually it makes the rest of the Tonglen session richer. Like it's more felt. It's a more embodied experience. It's not so like oh, I'm wishing this nice thing for you. Oh, it's not like that. It's like a very felt, like it's here, you know?
Yeah.
So yeah. So anyway, that's yeah, love it. Tong Lin, man, for the win.
Yeah, for real.
Yeah. I think that, you know, I think what you said, it was like, I think that the question is sort of a little bit of a trick, right? Like, in the beginning, what I hoped to gain was some sanity, right? Like
Mhm.
my mind was crazy, had lots of habitual patterns that weren't particularly helpful. Um, uh, Whatever, you know, just like really like not in a good place, right? Suffering is what brought me here. And so like, yeah, so I wanted, you know, in that sense, like I still want to gain in that sense. But gaining has really for quite some time stopped being a thing, like in the sense of like I recognize gains, you know what I mean, in that sense. Like I see, like we talked about it right at the outset, right? I'm like, oh wow, look at how my practice has changed things, right? Same with you. Like, wow, these are the gains that we're talking about. But like it really, I think that like when I think about it now, I'm like, nah, man, like for me, being a Buddhist or meditating is really in some sense about losing, right? And letting go. Like I know it's kind of a trope, but I really feel that a bit more nowadays, where it's like, yeah, right. I want to let go of all of those things that weren't helpful. And once I let go of all of those things, then there's greater peace of mind. It's not an achievement. It's a coming down, right? It's letting go.
Oh,
So it's sort of counterintuitive, right? You come into it thinking you're going to get, and in the end, you just lose.
yeah. So that really reminds me of something that's been coming up for me a lot lately in my training, and just in my daily life. Again, as I talked about earlier, is this really strong, I think, you know, what I've been dealing with is reputation over many, many millennia, likely, as we all are, right? It's one of the 8 worldly concerns. So, you know, I'm not alone in that. But that one really seems very a heavy karma for me. That one it sticks for me. And so I've just been imagining a lot, like what would it be like if I could take that kind of obsession really with like how other people see me. What if I could just set that down? Like, what would it feel like to release that and no longer have that burden, like really, really chaining me to samsara? Um, and so that's really interesting what you said about, you know, just it's really about losing. Um, and you know, there's plenty of times recently where I've had incidents where something's maybe been like embarrassing, you know, or maybe I said something where it was like, oh God, I don't know if I should have said that, you know, it's uncomfortable. But I have been able to kind of check myself and say, hey, wait a minute, this is exactly it. This is it. This is like one of those moments, you know? And so that's nice, where it's like, okay, can I in this moment just let go of that a little bit and not be so into myself, really.
What did it feel like when you do it?
It's still there. It's still like tight. I still feel that kind of like tightness and like
Yeah,
uneasiness.
yeah.
But there's just a little bit more awareness of, all right, that's the problem, you know? So it doesn't feel necessarily like I'm able to let it go. But I'm a lot less delusional about it, right? Like, because that's what I think, what I can imagine my practice is that I'm coming more and more out of delusion. And so whereas a few years ago, you know, maybe I'd have an embarrassing moment of something I said, and my thought process would be like, oh my God, you're such an idiot. Like those people think this
Oh
and
yeah.
this
Yeah.
about you. And I would just believe it, right? It would be like, that is what's happening.
Yep.
And I no longer do that. So that's really good.
Mm. Yeah, that is, it is. It really is. It's amazing to watch it, right? Like that it's both, it's a loss of delusion, right? And a gain, I suppose, of clarity. You know, I was gonna say whenever I have those moments like where you actually in the real world sort of experience that, like, oh, hey, whoa, this is it right here. And when I sort of apply, I notice a very physical sensation in like my upper back. Like it's an odd sort of sensation of like a like it's like open, like it's just, and it's all sort of just like right here. It's like really like it's weird, it's like a little like a tingly nice feeling, but it feels like this tightness it opens sort of. It's like That's why I was curious. I was wondering if you have any like physical sensations.
Yeah. And I would say, yeah, maybe sometimes, like if I can really kind of like super ground into it, I think, yeah, one of my problems is that I have such a flighty mind that it can be hard to really kind of ground into my body and recognize what's happening. So, yeah, that is something that I'm working on being aware of.
Cool.
But I love hearing that's, it's almost like, it sounds like it's like your wings are bound up and then you kind of just let them loose and
That's what it feels like, Jac.
I love that. We're freeing our wings. That's what we're doing in becoming a Buddhist.
Yeah, I thought Red Bulls did it, but Buddhism does it.
Buddhism. What do you think? Should I get another one?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. How do I know that working to help others is worth it?
How do I know the working to help others is worth it?
Yeah. So that like putting my effort towards benefiting others, how do I know if it's worth it?
I don't know, direct experience, right? Like you do it and then you see that it's worth it. Yeah, it's interesting, right? Like I don't know that there's, I suppose like sort of philosophically, there's a way to sort of point at, the benefits of it. Maybe we could even do one of those, what do you call it? Like a SWOT analysis. Right?
Oh, strengths, weaknesses, obstacles, right?
Opportunities and threats.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
I guess so, but I think that like my off the cuff sort of immediate answer is do it and you see the benefit, right? Like when you work to help other people, you notice a shift in your own perception. And as we've talked about, like, as you mentioned earlier, like there's also a shift in our attitude towards those people and the way that they respond to us. And so, working to help other people, if the goal, if part of the goal has to do with this strong, tightly held identity of self that is always sort of caring about it and what it wants and what it doesn't want and all of that, then sort of logically it makes sense that an antidote to that would be to start applying that same kind of feeling or same kind of energy towards somebody else. Right. And seeing what that experience is like. I think that's it, because it's a pretty immediate, at least in my experience, I think that it's always been a rather immediate, I don't want to call it reward, immediate impact, immediate something change, right? When I sincerely give myself to trying to help somebody else. It's not always the case though. There's been plenty of times where I try to help somebody for my own gain. That's different.
Yeah.
That leads to more of the tightness, more anxiety, more neuroses, more delusion. And so if what we're trying to do is get away from that delusional self that's so tightly held, I think that like it just sort of makes sense to try to see if the practice, I think, in other traditions, not in ours, but I think it's called, karma yoga, right? Doing a little bit of karma yoga, working on it and seeing what the results are like. And I think that it can be really small. I think it can start really small, like caring for even like a wild animal or something, right? Or something really small, like taking an insect out of your house instead of killing it, right? Instead of killing the spider, setting it free. Just watch, right? Like if you do that, like it's really easy to do. Everybody's got a spider or something running around their house. Yeah. And if you can notice that you're about to kill it or harm it or whatever, And instead you notice and you say, oh, I'm going to try that thing. I'm going to try to think about other beings besides myself. And you just do it, and you put the damn spider outside or something. Notice, like, what did that do? What did it feel like? And I bet you, I mean, I'd bet you dollars to donuts or more, right? Like, you're going to have an immediate sense of well-being and satisfaction, you know, and maybe even a little sort of like self-righteousness or something. I'm a really good person, you know.
I love that. Yeah, it's really sweet when we can bring it down to those small moments. And you're right that, you know, it might not be that we see some like cataclysmic change in the world as a whole, but we do see those little subtle shifts in ourselves, and that's really beautiful. And then something I was going to say too is that, you know, it can be really hard to, like, you know, I work in a field where you know, I'm working in mental health, and with people who are chronically mentally ill, and on state insurance, and uh, it's it's really hard sometimes because I don't I don't often get to see long-term change. Um, because a lot of what I do is just supporting people who are coming into the hospital due to a psychiatric emergency, and then they're gone. And then sometimes they come back, which, you know, hopefully I don't see them again, but sometimes I do. And so it's hard because it feels like, you know, there's this fire hydrant uh, that's just broken and going off, and I'm just kind of like poking a finger here and there. Um, but something that's helped me recently is during there was like a 2-day compassion workshop that Venerable Tenzin Choki gave at Lions Roar. And she and Lama actually said multiple times throughout that workshop that that really no good deed or activity just vanishes into thin air, right? You know, if we really believe in the law of karma, you know, whatever positive energy we're putting forward, even if we don't see it immediately, is having an effect down the line. If we really believe in karma, we can't not believe that our, you know, good actions are making an impact somehow, somewhere. So that is motivating to me when things feel really hard at work, and it's like, man, people are just suffering so intensely and I don't see any end to it. It's like, well, actually, no, we're doing good things here, and it is spreading out into the world.
Would you say, do you think that in that situation where it's difficult for you to measure the success of your, you know, good deeds towards others, do you think that it's easier, or that it is helpful to sort of see the way that it impacts you, like how you change when you do that? And if so, like, what might you notice?
Yeah, I mean, just like what you said about taking care of just the little creatures around our house, you know, when I can turn it more onto what I'm experiencing, that does have a different type of effect, because ultimately, you know, we are in samsara, and so everything that we look at out here externally, that is suffering. And, you know, as long as we are in samsara, we can't change the fact that there is going to be suffering. And so, you know, sometimes I really do, it's hard not to just see externally, like, things are bad right now. Things are bad in my, like, kind of immediate realm. But yeah, it is like this kind of turning towards persistent just willingness to access goodness in myself. And I do think that is a strength that I really was not skilled in before I met the Dharma. I would get burnt out so fast because I do have a lot of compassion, but I am, you know, obviously I'm still working on compassion, but that's something that comes to me a little bit naturally.
Yeah.
And what I'm working on is like the wisdom application of compassion, so that I don't just like fall apart. So yeah, being able to kind of like refill my cup by seeing like, yeah, what am I noticing in myself, that there are these shifts, and I'm able to see goodness in people even when there's so much awfulness happening to them or around them. And yeah, that is transformative for sure.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I had a related thought earlier today. It was this sort of, I was just sort of thinking about like, I was just like I was talking about like the benefits of personal practice, like practical and whatnot. I had this sort of like thought where I was like, there's all this energy, right? I've got all this energy, right? I can really feel it. And when I apply all that energy selfishly towards for my own benefit, my personal little self, when I do that, it's destructive. In my particular case, right? Like it tends to be destructive. I don't know another way to put it. But when energy is focused out towards others, it's constructive. And so it's this by turning it, by bending it, right? And being like, yeah, there it is. I can use all of this energy. But when I try to apply it to myself and get what I want, it's not good. I really should not be getting what I want. Right. But but truly, when I turn it, if I'm successful in bending it, at least, if I can turn it maybe like 49% of the time or so, it really is incredibly constructive. And I don't mean just for other people, right? I don't mean just that way. Like it isn't just that not just people, but it's not just that other beings benefit from this. Like we do too. We also kind of gain by losing.
Yeah. Yeah, what does the Dalai Lama say about if you're gonna be selfish, be like wisely selfish and care about others, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, because when we give back and when we support others, yeah, it feels wonderful. And we're bringing all of each other up, which is what we want. Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice. Hey, you got the next question.
Oh, that's me. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Which one?
The one in your left hand.
This one?
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. Your lucky numbers are no.
I was waiting. I was like, yes.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think this might have been one of my older ones. I think this was in the bowl originally, but I don't think we ever pulled it, which was how do you stop your thoughts when meditating?
Aha, another trick question. Well, that's a great question. And yes, it's impossible. Well, maybe impossible is an exaggeration, but what I've found in doing single pointed meditation is that I'm not going to stop my thoughts. My thoughts are going to keep happening. And really what I'm trying to do is develop my focus. And so if I can keep my focus on one thing, maybe it's my breath or the image of the Buddha that I'm visualizing, and thoughts still happen, I'm still doing my meditation. I'm right there. I'm with it. Where I'm kind of getting off course is when thoughts come up and I'm like, yeah, that's a real problem. I'm gonna need to talk to that person at work tomorrow because blah 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 blah. Where I'm really like engaging with it, getting into it. My blood pressure's going up. So yeah, what I've learned is over the last few years of working on meditation is that I'm not going to stop the thought. Not yet. That's not the stage that I'm at. Really, I'm just coming back to the object of my meditation. And if all those thoughts are happening and I'm still with the object, that's a really focused meditation, and that's great. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
It was a little bit of a fluff question, I think.
uh-huh.
Yeah, like definitely nothing is going to stop thoughts. Although there appear to be times where thoughts on their own just sort of just kind of quiet down. And like I can't make it happen. I
Right.
can't stop them. But there are times where, you know, in meditation, I can sense like, oh, like it's empty, like there's nothing there, right?
Yeah.
But I can't make it happen. And if I try to make it happen, I'll be thinking right away. I'm sorry, Jack, but I feel like that. I really think that you meant the right.
Should we pick that one? Should we do another one? We've got time. We've got 7 minutes.
Dude, I think we can hit this one in 7 minutes because even though it's folded up, I know what's in here.
Oh no.
I didn't cheat, promise. I just happen to know what's here. So
Yeah.
I'm omniscient. No, just kidding. I'm not. Okay, all right, Jack, you need to tell me the truth about this, okay?
Okay.
This is not a trick question.
I'm nervous.
Is enlightenment even achievable? Have you ever met an enlightened person?
Whoa. Can I say I'm not sure? Because, well, I do have a lot of faith now. And I have met people who are like what I would say is enlightened, but I don't know exactly if that's like the ultimate enlightenment. But yeah, people who are awake to their life and awake to their interactions with others and just like, you know, right there. And I'd say that's enlightenment. But yeah, I really question that myself too, because it just seems so far off for me, you know. And I'm like, shit, I don't know. when I just do my off the cuff you know, thoughts about it, it's like, yeah, I don't know. It seems really, really hard.
I think it's one of those. I think you just using the like a Bill Clinton defense, right? Like just define it. What exactly do you mean by enlightenment? I think a lot of people have different thoughts about it. I agree with. I like yours though. That you know, people who are awake, like truly awake and present, you know, with what's in front of them. Like that's I don't know if it's enlightened as in like an ultimate sort of state. But I've never met a single soul who said that they were enlightened. I don't even know that I've met anybody who thought they were trying to get enlightened. You know what I mean? Like, oh, maybe that's not so much. But like it doesn't seem to be like something that people really actually point to as like, yes, you're going to be enlightened and it's a final destination. Once you get there, there's nothing left to do, right? There is sort of this idea like, okay, Buddha achieved enlightenment, right? But I think that like my sense is that enlightenment is not a one-time thing. It's, you know, it's like a continuum, or it's maybe there's lots of enlightenments, right? Like you might have enlightening moments or something to that effect.
Well, what's that Zen quote? It's like before enlightenment, carry water, chop wood, right?
Yeah.
After enlightenment, carry water, chop wood.
That's right.
And yeah, I mean, the Buddha didn't achieve enlightenment and then just stay in the forest and you know, by himself. Like the Buddha, you know, went on and taught, which is really hard. So like you know, he was engaging in all types of action all the time and learning too. So that's what's something that's really interesting about the Buddhist story is that, yeah, he achieved enlightenment, but he also struggled to find ways to teach everybody. And it was sometimes through trial and error. Like there's that one story about the two monks who end up killing themselves because they have a wrong view of emptiness. And so the Buddha has to, you know, adjust his teachings for certain students so that they don't do that, you know? So yeah, I can totally see how and yeah, enlightenment is not just like okay, now I get to disengage and just like enjoy all of this like beautiful feeling. It's actually, I think, a very active state, because if we're engaging in enlightenment as a Buddha, it's really to help other people achieve their enlightenment. And so we're like active, getting in there and trying to figure out how to get people out of samsara. So yeah, takes a
Yeah.
lot of effort, but also it's probably like, yeah, it's just I'm doing this because it's like, ooh, it feels like kind of like easy, like you're navigating like all this like complicated stuff, but you're really like with it. I don't know, it just seems, it's probably like really enjoyable, like to it's like these little puzzles of the Buddha trying to figure out how to benefit people.
I'm really glad that you brought up the stories, because within Buddhism, certainly, if there's any figure that can be thought of as inspiration for enlightenment, it's Shakyamuni Buddha, right? And so, like, in that sense, the fact that he was still human and still was, I mean, like, in some sense, like a person, like I think a misconception that people might have is like, well, enlightenment means you know everything, you're perfect, you're omniscient, all of those things, right? And therefore there's no, like, you're perfect in that, like, you're a perfect being that knows everything, can do anything. But that doesn't, I mean, if Buddha is the example that we hold up, then that's patently false, right? Then that's not what we're talking about when we're talking about enlightenment. It's not some kind of a godlike state.
Yeah, we're not even Buddhists are aiming for perfection. We're just aiming for deep compassion and tied to as much wisdom as we can. So
Exactly.
yeah. Ooh, fun.
I don't know, we should just like redo it, make this our entire talk show.
It's really fun. I've been enjoying it. And those of you who are watching on Zoom or on Facebook, if y'all have any questions that you want to hear us talk about, we would love to do maybe down the road another couple shows on just your questions. So please send us those questions. And
can they suggest topics as well? If maybe they don't have questions, they want us to talk about something about in particular.
I like that. Yeah, great idea.
Yeah. What, email you? Is that the right way to go? Or
email me or send a message to Lions Roar if you don't know how to email me.
Make a comment on Facebook, something like that.
That's a good one. Yeah, I like that.
Yeah. Oh, hey, I wanted to tell you, I ran into someone who was watching our show on absolutely. Last Wednesday, beginner's meditation. It was really lovely. We had some new faces there, and then I introduced myself to this person who was there, and they were like, "Oh yeah, I was listening to you yesterday," and I was like,
"Oh, yay! That's so fun."
Yeah.
Well, welcome back to that person if you're here, and we're so grateful that that you're joining us. It's a true pleasure.
Absolutely, as it is being with you, Jac, always.
Yes, Daniel. Thank you.
Hey, I just wanted to tell you, because your reputation is so important to you. Like, I just wanted to let you know, like, I'm a Google guide, and so I left a 5-star review of you. Right? 5 stars, out of this world. A+, would do Dharma with again.
Thank you. That's very kind of you. All right, my friend. It's been wonderful. And we'll talk to each other next week.
Adios. See you then. Bye.
Bye.